How are you guys doing today? Good morning. So many beautiful faces. I think I got 100 minutes with you guys, if that's okay. I know you guys are going to learn a lot and absorb a lot of information during this conference. So with my time with you guys today, I hope I can give you guys as much value for your personal lives, maybe taking something back to your organizations, working with your teams if you're in a leadership position. So in this time that we have together, I hope I can give you guys as much as I can. I'm a little bit of a fast talker, so I'm going to try to slow myself down, but I think we're going to have some fun. We're going to have a great time. Yes, I like that. So when I was an 8-year-old boy, my brothers and I, we used to like to dump sugar on top of our already sweet cereal. And my mom wanted to stop us from ever doing that again. She thought we ate too much cereal or too much sugar. So she said, Michael, she caught us one time. We were sneaking some sugar into our cereal, and she caught us, and she said, Michael, if you eat too much sugar, your butt cheeks are going to stick together. To this day, I got to make sure that everything's okay back there if I have a big sugary donut or something. But don't worry, today I won't be talking to you guys about the rules to proper sugar consumption. But just like there are certain rules and principles that you and I can follow to have a healthy body and not have our cheeks stick together, there are also certain rules and principles that you and I can follow to have a healthy mindset, to create an extraordinary life, to create extraordinary relationships, to create extraordinary organizations. I've got 11 principles for you that I hope I can articulate them to you in a way that I originally intended to, because in a little bit, you'll understand exactly why they'll be some of the most important things that you'll ever hear in your life. And one day soon, when you're down and you're out, suddenly you aren't so motivated, suddenly you aren't so inspired, suddenly you aren't so excited about what you do every day, you can come back to these principles, they'll take you by the hand, and they'll set you right back on track like they once did for me. These principles are universal. So whether you're a teacher, a student, the coach, or the athlete, the boss, or the employee, you can't escape them and you can't ignore them. And if you try to, you only set yourself up for a life of failure and mediocrity. You see, I'm obsessed with this idea of mediocre living because not so long ago, that was me, and we see it everywhere in our world. We've got mediocre goals, mediocre dreams, mediocre ambitions, mediocre skills, all leading to mediocre results. But you have a conversation with somebody, nobody admits to having mediocre dreams, right? Everyone's got some sort of big goal, big dream, big idea, and yet when we examine their life, they're not only missing this thing from the life, but they're not even headed anywhere in the right direction. So why is that? Why is it that we feel like we can do more and be more, and yet most of us will wake up and we're exactly the same year after year? How do we become the kind of leaders that other people look at and then actually want to follow? See, I'm a big believer in that every single person in this room is a leader in one way or another, whether you know it yet or not. You might already be a leader in your organization. You might be a leader in your community. You might be a leader in your family. You might be a leader just to your pet rabbit. But in one way or another, we all have people in our lives that are depending on us, that are needing us to show up and give our best every single day. And so going through these principles, I want to show you how every single one of us can develop this extraordinary mindset. And with this mindset, we'll be able to create an extraordinary life, extraordinary relationships, and be able to stay alive all of our lives. Is it okay if I show you how to do that? Yeah. Great. So picture this in your mind. It's a brisk winter morning. We see a 12-year-old Russian boy standing with his feet set firmly on the ground, and his shaky hands wrapped tightly around the rough handle of a pitchfork. His wild eyes never come off the 2 men in front of him, and even though fear grips his entire body, he takes a step closer, still pointing his pitchfork right at the throat of 2 unarmed Soviet policemen. His pitchfork is the first thing he thought to grab when he heard his mother scream coming from outside. He ran out to find these 2 men untying the family cow to take it away. This cow is his family's last source of food. Without it, there's nothing else left for them to live on. All across the country, the government's already taken whatever they needed from the citizens, and now this boy is willing to kill to protect what's left. 2 policemen finally realize that this is not a steak worth dying over, and they take off running with the boy chasing after him. But as soon as he returns, he noticed that his mother already packed him a little bag of food for the road. She put an address to a family member's in a village far away, and she sent him to run. She knew that it was only a matter of time until the officers would return, but next time they would be armed, and next time they would take more than just a cow. For 6 years, this boy lived in hiding, and then the war began. And now the year is 1942, and it's the darkest hour of a cold, cold night. Hitler's got the rest of the world with its back up against the wall. The Germans have the city of Leningrad completely surrounded with about 2 million civilians and soldiers trapped inside the city. Russians are sending every man they have to break through the German lines to deliver more food and supplies into the city. And now we find this same 12-year-old kid who's now 19 lying in a muddy field somewhere near the city of Leningrad. He's cold, he's wet, and out of the 12,000 Russian soldiers that were ordered to attack the Nazi front lines that morning, he's now one of maybe 12 that's still alive. He's lying there and he's waiting for night to come. You see, nighttime means that maybe he can get up, run back to the cover of his own front lines in the cover of the dark. But when night comes, the Germans start shooting their flares, and it's so bright outside that standing up and running would have been suicide. So he digs in, puts his chin on the back of his palm to keep his face out of the mud, and just as he does that, a bullet grazes his hand just inches from his face. A second one rips through his backpack and nearly tosses him over. The Germans are so close, he can hear the shouts as officers yell orders from their trenches, and any moment now, someone will find him in that field and finish him off. He's lying there and he's wishing for a rifle, a shovel, maybe even that pitchfork like the one he had when he was 12, anything at all to defend himself for even a few more seconds of life. But earlier that morning when they were ordered to attack, there was more men than there were guns. They were handed one gun for every 3 men. This kid was handed a pack of 5 bullets and just ordered to run with the hope of finding a rifle just somewhere along the way. He's lying there, and out of nowhere, another one of his surviving comrades comes crawling up beside him, but this kid won't stay still. He kept squirming and moving and trying to find a good time to get up and run, and this kid shouted for him to stop moving, and it was too late. He heard the sound of lead hitting the body, gargle of blood, and his buddy was no longer moving. He lied there all night. When morning finally comes, a German soldier finds him in that field, kicks him in the ribs, sticks a rifle to his forehead, and then he says something to him that ultimately changes the life of this 19-year-old kid. Speaking in broken Russian, the German says, "I don't know who it is that you pray to, but I've been shooting at you all night, and I could not get you." With that, this kid is pulled from the ground and marched off to serve 4 years in some of the most brutal and horrid concentration camps that our history has ever seen. But now, this 19-year-old kid believed that maybe his life was spared for something greater, and he started to live that way. Surrounded by young men from all over the world, from America, Britain, Poland, Russia, the Jews that were there, of course, he gave up his own breadcrumbs to those on the verge of starvation. Often jumped in, took the place of others, received beatings that he didn't deserve. And just when it seemed like there was nothing else to live for behind those barbed wire fences, he found purpose and hope in serving others. He learned that the prisoners who died first were always the ones who gave up in their minds first. The ones who had nothing else to live for anymore were always the ones to be buried shortly after, dying of diseases and cold. He learned that a leader is not a man or a woman who gets placed into a leadership role, but a leader is a man or a woman that is willing to fight for what they believe in and what they stand for, no matter what they're faced up against. He learned that a leader is a man or woman that is willing to fight for the dreams of others as hard as they're willing to fight for their own. He learned that a leader is a man or a woman who is willing to serve someone without ever expecting to be served in return. He learned that if you have an idea in your mind, you obsess over it, you hold on to it with everything that you have, with every ounce of hope that you have, then it's only a matter of time until you have it. Because you see, extraordinary people understand that in this life, you can never settle for anything less than what you most desire. When the Americans finally freed him from the camp he was in, liberated him from the camp, they actually gave him an opportunity to come to the United States to start a new life, but he wanted to go home to that place that he left behind as a 12-year-old boy because it was that picture of home that kept him going, kept him alive through all those years. He wanted to see his mother again. This 19-year-old kid was my grandfather. His name was Michael Ivanov. They named me after him. You see, I learned there's 3 types of people in this world. First, there are people in this world that are willing to face anything. And they're willing to fight, and they're willing to hold on just to see what could happen, just to see what could become of their lives if they just held on for just a little bit longer. And when it seems like things are completely falling apart for them, these people still somehow find a way to thrive. My grandfather is one of these people. Then there are the people in this world who won't see the bright side to life no matter what opportunities are brought to them laid right at their feet. They have circumstances in their minds that can't get past them. And these are people like Brianne, a classmate of mine who took her own life over a bridge. And these are people like Johan, a classmate of mine who took his own life in his college dorm. And these are the 121 Americans that are going to commit suicide by the time the clock hits midnight tonight because in their minds, there's no more options for them. And finally, there are the people stuck somewhere right in between. All across our country, there are people who walk into job sites, offices, schools, medical facilities, government buildings with poker faces on. And day after day, month after month, year after year, they go through the motions, but they have no life behind these motions. These people aren't ready to give up and end it all, but they're not really fighting for anything either. Just somewhere right in between, doing just enough to get by, nothing ever extraordinary. Among these people, you could have found me not so long ago. You see, we all have these needs. Even as leaders, we have these needs to have our talents acknowledged, our voices to be heard, our skills to be noticed and appreciated, and to be able to contribute to society, to our organizations, to our communities in our own unique way. But when we fail to find a way to fulfill these needs, our enthusiasm, our value for life, slowly starts to diminish. One of our problems is we're so digitally connected these days that with the click of a button and a scroll, we compare ourselves to the lives of millions of people around us. Instead of we don't feel so unique, we don't feel so talented, and we feel smaller than ever. To add on top of that, we're living in a world of instant gratification, overnight success, and a lot of us are feeling the pressure, and a lot of times we're not only thriving in our environments, but some of us are barely surviving. Today I want to show you how not to survive, but how to thrive in any environment, any obstacle, anywhere, any organization that you may find yourselves in. See, in our world, we've got these beautiful things, right? We've got mountaintops, we've got ocean floors, especially out here in Bend. Beautiful, beautiful. Every time we see a sunset, we whip our phones out, we try to capture these moments in nature, right? And yet, how much more beautiful, how much more magnificent of a creature are you and I, than any of these things in nature? We've completely devalued ourselves, and I think it's time that we start showing up to this world in the way that people can't take their eyes off of us because of the passion that we live with, the enthusiasm that we bring every single day, the way that we pursue after our dreams. I think it's time that we start showing up to this world in the way that we make it a more beautiful place just by being here. Am I right? When my grandfather passed away, my mom, my dad, they grabbed his kids and they escaped the Soviet Union. They came to the United States. I grew up with 7 brothers, 5 sisters. 13 of us in the family. Big family. We grew up with very little. We grew up on donated couches and used mattresses. A lot of churches helped us start out. But even though we grew up with very little, we always clung together very tightly as a family. And part of that reason, I think, is every time we would gather around the dinner table, my mom, my dad, they tell us these stories about my grandfather in the war, them growing up in the communist country. And it was the way they told us these stories that always kept us kids glued to them growing up. Every time we gather around the dinner table, my dad would be at the head of the table. That was Victor's spot. You took his spot. You got your butt whooped. The rest of us kids would be huddled around the table like this, elbow to elbow, just sitting there listening to my dad tell us some of these stories. And oftentimes, right in the middle of these stories, he would tear up and he would just go silent for these long periods of time. To me as a kid, these moments felt like an eternity. Then finally, he'd start to stir his teaspoon a little bit, and then he'd continue with the story. So you see why as a kid, I never had a problem with believing in myself. I was raised on these stories of willpower, faith, and willingness to fight for a dream. Even as a kid, I thought, hey, if I wanted to do something cool with my life, all I had to do was just be willing to try. And so when I was 10 years old, I had this plan. I was going to become an author. Stories in my books, well, they were going to inspire people all over the world. But something happens to us from those days when we're those little kids with the big eyes and the big dreams to that day when nobody really knows when it happens, but suddenly we become adults, right? Little by little, we get these things beaten out of us. When I was 11 years old, I got punched in the nose by a kid at school just because I was Russian. Don't feel bad, though. I punched him back. When I was 12, I got moved into a slower classroom because I wasn't catching on as quickly as the smart kids were. When I was 16, this girl that I had a big crush on, she told me that I was too short for her, so she stopped talking to me. When I was 17, I was told my invention ideas were stupid. When I was 18, I ran out of my speech class in college. I never came back. I did so bad on my first speech, I blacked out. I don't remember a single word that I said. And by the time I was 19, by the time I was 20, by the time I was 21, all these amazing things, all these cool things that I thought I was going to do with my life had already been well beaten out of my spirit. But see, we don't just happen to be born with limitations, right? It's little by little, through these experiences, that the world teaches us very quickly that we're nothing special. The things we really want in this life, they're not going to come all that easy. So you might as well sit down, shut up, and stop dreaming. And soon enough, we don't know who we are, where we were headed, or what we even wanted in this life. Whether you're 25 in here, you're 45, you're 85, you're 95. There's things that happen to us in our lives that completely derail us from our vision. There's things that happen to us that completely steer us away from our vision, and soon enough, we don't know who we are or where we were headed in the first place. And so what do? We find escapes, right? Still got to find something to distract ourselves with, something to keep our minds busy. Maybe it's the next weekend, it's the next trip, it's the next holiday, something to look forward to. I discovered beer. I had a lot of brothers and I had a lot of friends. I discovered with a lot of beer and a lot of friends, you could at least have a lot of good parties. And that's exactly what I dedicated all of my time, all of my energy to. Some of the most important years of my life. 18 to 25, some of the years that I should have been growing, should have been moving forward, should have been discovering what it was that I wanted to do. I was just making sure that I was having a good time. There's only one problem with that. The minute you stop taking responsibility for life, the minute you start to find ways to distract yourself with, is the minute you're in trouble. Why is it that most people can tell you 30 of their favorite TV shows, but they can't tell you a title to a single personal development book? Why is it that most people can tell you all the stats to their favorite sports teams, but they don't know their own credit score? Why is it if we ever get a chance to meet somebody famous, we'll take a selfie with them, we'll post it online, we'll brag about it, but we'll never do anything or even try anything that might make us stand out and make a difference? Why is it that we continue to lift the skills and the dreams and the talents and the passions of people around us up on a pedestal, and we continue to devalue our own dreams, our own skills, and our own talents? This reminds me of a story. It's a story about a master and his 3 servants. One day, maybe you've heard the story, one day this master's going on this trip, and he's going to be gone a long time. And so he calls his servants together into the room, and then he takes a sip of water. And he says, I'm going to be going on this trip, and I'm going to be gone a long time. And I'm going to leave you guys with these bags of gold because I don't want my money sitting around. I don't want my money wasted. And he says, when I come back, we'll go through the books, we'll see how you guys did. So he turns to the first servant. He says, here's 5 talents for you. A talent of gold is a measure of gold, it's an amount of gold. He says, 5 talents for you. See what you can do with that. When I come back, we'll go through the books, and we'll see how you did. Turns to the second servant. He says, 2 talents for you. See what you can do with that. When I come back, we'll go through the books, we'll see how you did. Then he turns to the third servant. He says, here's 1 talent for you. See what you can do with that. When I come back, we'll go through the books, and we'll see how you did. He goes on his trip, and he's gone a long time. And finally, he returns. He's gone for years. He returns. And now it's time to see what these guys were doing with his money, see what these guys are doing with his time, his resources. And so he turns to the first servant. He said, I think I gave you 5 talents, right? What'd you do with those? And the servant said, it's tough at first, but eventually we got things going, figured it out. We reinvested the money. The 5 turned to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 talents. I doubled what you gave me. Master said, well done. Then he turned to the second servant. He said, I gave you 2 talents, right? What'd you do with those? And the servant said, it's kind of like that first guy. It's tough at first, but eventually we got things going, figured it out. The 2 turned to 3, turned to 4. 4 talents, I doubled what you gave me. Master said, well done. Then he turned to the third servant. He said, I gave you 1 talent. What'd you do with that? And what did the servant say? Well, you only gave me 1 talent, and I knew that you would ask for it when you came back. And so I took that talent, I wrapped it up really nicely, I dug a hole, and I buried it. And as soon as I heard that you were coming back, I dug it out, and here it is. The master said, take his talent away from him. Give it to the one who's got 10. I like what he does with my money, with the time and the resources that I gave him. See, the lesson for us is that we've got to stop looking around at what everyone else around us has. The time, the resources, the skills, the opportunities, the talents that other cities, other communities, other states have. And we've got to figure out a way how to invest into our time, our skills, our opportunities, our talents. See, in this life, you've got to have a vision of yourself so far into the future that you're reaching for it, you're stretching for it. By the time you've achieved it, you've become someone entirely different. If you identify as a servant with the 1 talent, you've got to be working twice as hard as these other 2 guys to continue to pour into that talent instead of burying it. You've got to figure out a way how to use this 1 talent, this 1 resource, and continue to pour into it and use what you have to get you to that end destination. See, and that's the one thing I didn't have. I lost vision for myself. And when you once thought you could do more and be more and you were going to do all these amazing things, but then you wake up and you're about as far from that as the east is from the west, and you slowly start to die a little bit inside. There's an old Benjamin Franklin quote. It says, most people die at 25, they aren't even buried until 75. I found myself right in the middle of old Ben's quote. 25 years old, dead inside, just not buried yet. Worst part about this kind of mindset, worst part about this kind of attitude, worst part about this kind of approach to life is that it starts to bleed into every single aspect of your life. It starts to show up in your relationships. It starts to show up in your organization. It starts to show up in your family, the way that you treat people. For me, I started showing up to work 15 minutes late every single day because I already had this really bad attitude towards work and life. And because I'd be 15 minutes late, I'd have to sneak in through this back door. We had this back door in the back of our building. So I'd sneak in through that back door. I'd make my way through the cubicles. I'd drop my butt in my seat. And then I'd sit there all day, doing just enough not to get by, just enough not to get fired, just enough not to get in trouble. Never offered any of my ideas, never offered any creativity because I knew, hey, the more of myself that I'd give to the job, the more responsibilities I'd have. 4 o'clock, I'd close out on my email to make sure I didn't get any assignments that might keep me there past 5 o'clock. 4:59, I was headed straight for that back door. Every day, same routine, and I never did a thing about it. And then one day, it all finally caught up to me. Sitting there in this cubicle, just staring at this gray wall in front of me, listening to the ticking of the clock. And I just couldn't handle it anymore. Got up out of that seat and I headed straight for that back door. If you're in a position right now, if you're in an environment right now, if you're in an organization, if you're on a career path right now that you enjoy, you find purpose, you find meaning in it, make sure that you continue to invest more of yourself into it. Make sure that you continue to set bigger targets, new goals, new vision for yourself. Because we can find meaning and purpose in what we do. We can enjoy what we do, but it's only a matter of time that if we become complacent, then that meaning, that purpose, that can start fading away from what we do. And for me, on this day, I headed straight out that back door. We had this basketball court in the back of our building. And I looked to my left, no one was around. I looked to my right, no one was there. And I crouched right there, right on the concrete, in my slacks. And I'm embarrassed to tell you guys this, but I started to cry. I was so embarrassed that here it was, a kid raised by grandparents that fought through wars and concentration camps, fought for every second of life that they possibly could have. Raised by parents that left everything they ever knew behind to come to a country where they didn't know the language, they didn't know the people, just to give their family a little bit better of an opportunity. And here I was, grown-ass man, 25 years old, just trying to find an excuse to throw his legs out of bed in the morning and to show up to work on time. I was so ticked off that somehow I got tricked into believing that doing amazing things were just for people with special skills and people with special talents. Then sometime later, I realized this was probably one of the best days of my life. This was one of the best days of my life because on this day, something sparked in me. Maybe I was thinking about my grandfather lying in that field praying for just a few more minutes of life. Maybe I was remembering my dad's tired eyes coming home from work every single day trying to feed 13 hungry mouths. Maybe I was realizing that I was that lazy servant in that story. Just dug a hole and buried it, any talent you ever had. But on this day, everything changed for me. See, disgust is a negative emotion, but disgust can do some amazing things for you if you let it push you to something. It's okay to be disgusted with how things are going in our communities, in our country, in our personal life, but it's never okay to not do something about it. See, if I'm constantly complaining and I'm constantly disgusted about how things are going around me, eventually I'm going to start turning into kind of a disgusting person. You've got to let that push you to something, cause you to create the changes that you want to see, whether that's in your personal life or that's in your organization. For me on this day, I left my office and I went home and I got this big whiteboard and I started drilling this big whiteboard right into my sheetrock wall. Drilling each screw was like a decoration to myself, it was like a promise to myself. First screw, I'll never sleep on my dreams ever again. Second screw, I'll never bury my talents ever again. Third screw, I'll never feel like I did today ever again. And fourth screw, I'll never let anyone around me ever feel like I did today ever again. On this big whiteboard, I remapped my entire future. I started writing out all the things that I was disgusted about, that I wanted to change, all the dreams that I never pursued, all the ideas that I never followed through on. And then I stuck my nose into books. They became my greatest mentors. See, if you got questions in life, go to where the answers are. Guys like Napoleon Hill, Norman Vincent Peale, Og Mandino, W. Clement Stone, all these old school guys, Jim Rome. I love these guys because they say it like it is with all this extra crap and all the extra fluff. From these guys, I started seeing these common themes, these common principles that kept appearing. How important it was to have a vision for your life and constantly be growing and moving towards this vision. How important it was to find meaning and purpose in what you do every single day, whether it's big or small. How important it was to find happiness in what you do in your accomplishments. And from these guys, I started seeing these common little principles that kept appearing that were allowing me to change my life. And so I started pulling them together, and I compiled them into these 11 that I want to share with you guys today. They're not going to blow your mind. They may not even be principles that you haven't heard before. Maybe just said in a little bit of a different way with a little bit of different stories in my own personal experience. One of these guys in particular was a man named Og Mandino. I don't know if anybody's read any of his stuff. Amazing stuff. I read one of his books and it inspired me and changed my entire way of thinking. And so I was like, I need to find more content from this guy. I heard he was a speaker. And so I looked him up on YouTube. It was the only place I could find anything. And I found this old video of one of his last speeches. And I think he was about 90 years old during one of his last speeches. And I watched this video on YouTube. It was really bad quality, really bad audio. But I watched this man get up onto the stage with the help of his assistants and deliver the speech. Spoke right into my heart. And I remember thinking, how does somebody from that generation, from so long ago, somebody who's already passed away, how do they inspire a kid in our fast-paced moving world? And I thought, what if I could do that? If I could one day get up onto a stage with the help of some assistants, that can be if I'm lucky enough to live to 90 years old, to 100 years old, and I deliver a speech, or I write a book, I create a piece of content, and some kid, and who knows what the hell the world's going to look like in the future, they read it, it inspires them, it changes their life. I thought that would be a life of purpose. That would be a life of meaning. I thought I could do that. So on that day, I decided to revive some of those old 20-year-old dreams that I had of becoming an author. Scary part was that I also had to decide to become a speaker too, because if Jim Rome and Og Mandino were doing it, I was going to have to do it too, even though I was deathly afraid of it. You might not be lying in a muddy field praying for just a few more minutes of life. You might not be ready to tie a noose around your neck. But I know there's people here today ready to lay a new foundation in their life, ready to start fresh, ready to go back to your offices on Monday with a new mindset, with a new perspective, with a new approach to life. With that, we can start with number one. I learned that extraordinary leaders understand that your words spoken set your life in motion. See, a farmer walks through rows and rows of dirt in his field. And as he's walking through his field, he's tossing seeds from his pouch. And the seeds are landed into the dirt, and then the rain comes, and the sun shines, and the seeds start to sprout their root. And the rain continues to come, the sun continues to shine, and the seeds slowly start to come out of the ground, and they start to bear their fruit. If the farmer planted tomatoes, he's not going to expect potatoes to come out of the ground, right? If the farmer planted an apple tree, he's not going to expect a grapevine to come out of the ground. Farmer knows if he planted wheat, wheat is all he's going to get. You see, you and I are this farmer. In that every single day, the words that we use, the conversations that we have in our heads, the stories that we tell ourselves are just like these seeds. And every repetition of these stories, every repetition of these words are like those raindrops and like that sunshine. And soon enough, these seeds go deep into our subconscious mind and they start to bear their fruit. And they start to shape your entire life. Everything that you believe about yourself, everything that you believe about the world around you, everything that you believe about your organization starts to be shaped by these stories. If you don't like what that is, be ruthless about what you permit into your thoughts and the stories that you allow yourself to tell yourself. A couple ways that we can incorporate this principle, understand this principle a little bit better into our lives, into our organizations. First thing, we've got to understand that before we can lead others, we've got to lead ourselves first. See, everywhere we go, no matter where we are at any given moment, we all have this internal dialogue going. Out loud, we'll talk about all the things that we want from people, all the things that we want from ourselves, all the things that we want from the world around us. And inside, simultaneously, we have the other conversation going, the one that's contradicting everything that we want. Out loud, we'll talk about all the things that we want. We want to do something big. This voice is telling us to play small. We want to do something different. This voice is telling us to stick to the routine. We want to step out of our comfort zone. This voice is telling us, play it safe. We have an innovative idea. This voice reminds us of all the consequences of failure. We want to believe in a new relationship. This voice reminds us of all the times that we've been hurt before. We want to be confident. This voice reminds us of all the insecurities and starts playing that right back to us. See, one thing we've got to understand, a very wise person once said, a house divided against itself is not going to stand. For us, that means we can't be double-minded. We've got to understand that nobody out there in this world already doing amazing things is somehow immune to fears, worries, anxieties, and obstacles. They're just people who learn how to take control of the story that they tell themselves, and they learn to point it, to guide it into one direction. They understand that being double-minded breeds hesitation. Hesitation is the killer of all dreams. Imagine being a leader who's questioning yourself at every single turn, questioning yourself at every decision, every choice that you make. That's not going to work out well for you. And so what do we got to do? Start planting new seeds. Get yourself a new library. Get yourself some books. Spend a little bit less time on social media and some of that negative headlines and some of that negative news, and get yourself a new library. See, every time you open up a book, you introduce yourself to some of the greatest people who have ever walked the earth, who have ever lived. Let them speak into your mind. Take on their conversations. Let them plant some seeds into your mind. You'll see just how quickly your story can be shaped by the seeds in what you plant into it. And once we master our own story, once we master ourselves, now we can lead others with power, right? If you want people to be a certain way, don't remind them of who they are. Chances are people already know exactly who they are, exactly their attitude, exactly how they show up. If you want them to be a certain way, start to speak to them in the way that you already want, as if they already are the kind of person that you want them to become. And I promise you, people will live into that. People don't like to disappoint someone who actually shows a belief in them, who actually sees a bigger vision for them, maybe if they don't even see it themselves yet. Being a leader who leads by making people afraid of you, that's only going to get you so far. You've seen from my story. People always give you just enough not to get in trouble, just enough not to get fired, just enough not to get disciplined. But you start speaking to you start showing them their potential, who they could become even before they see it, and people start living to that. That'll change things for you. Colonel Abrams, World War II, was paradropped into Normandy behind enemy lines. Him and his guys find themselves completely surrounded by German soldiers from all sides, and they think it's the end for them. They know we're either getting killed or we're getting captured, we're getting arrested, and his guys are terrified. Colonel Abrams looks at his guys. He sees the fear in his guys. He sees the fear in their eyes, and he famously says this quote, "They've got us surrounded again, boys, those poor bastards." You've got to understand that I don't think that he wasn't afraid himself on the inside. I think him seeing the fear in his guys' eyes, he knew that he needed to change their story, the story that they would tell themselves. And in one sentence, he flipped around completely exactly how that story played out for them. That's the kind of mindset that we have to take. That's the kind of approach that we have to have. See, leaders continue to demonstrate courage, whether that's on the battlefield or that's in an office building, no matter how they feel themselves at that moment. If you as a leader walk into an office on a Monday morning, the first words out of your mouth are that it's another dreadful Monday and things aren't going well, and you're venting your fears and you're venting your frustrations, we're all guilty of it. But imagine how that starts to shape your office culture. It starts to bleed down around you. People start to pick up on that. It starts to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. What kind of story are you telling yourself today that's keeping you stuck? What kind of story, what kind of conversations are you having that are shaping your entire office culture by the way that you speak, by the way that you carry yourself? With our words, we can destroy ourselves. We can destroy other people. With our words, we can build ourselves up. We can build other people up. Lead this way, your life will never be the same again. Your organization will never be the same again. I learned that extraordinary leaders understand that you've got to live with the end in mind. A few years back, my brothers and I, we started this nonprofit organization, and it's called Flash Love. It was a flash mob approach to serving people. So instead of getting into big groups and doing dances or singing or something, we decided that we were going to get a bunch of teens in our community, get them together into these big groups, and we'd run into a neighborhood and we'd paint over graffiti, or we would rake leaves, we'd clean neighborhoods up. And one of our very first events, we got a call from a manager of an adult care home. And she said, "I heard about you guys' organization. Would you guys please come to our adult care home? It's Christmas Eve. It's one of the most loneliest times of the year for some of our residents." And we've never done that before, so we said, sure, that's a good idea. So we got a bunch of kids who make up these Christmas cards. And we got these Christmas cards, and we went to this adult care home, and we're chatting with the folks. We're having great conversations. We're having a really good time. And then we walked into this one man's room, completely changed my life forever. Still remember walking into that room. It was a little bit awkward walking in. It was a dimly lit room. He had these carpets hanging down his walls, and he couldn't get up out of his bed. He was laying in his bed. And by the time that I walked in, I noticed that some of the girls that we were with, they had gone in ahead of us, and they told him why we were there. And as soon as he found out why we were there, he grabbed onto their hands, and he kept squeezing their hands the entire time we were there, no matter what small talk, no matter what conversations no matter what questions we were trying to ask him, trying to have with him. He kept ignoring all of us. He kept squeezing onto their hands, and he kept saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And he kept crying the entire time. He kept thanking us that we didn't pass by his room on our way through that adult care home. I can tell you guys right now, not a single one of us walked out of that room without deeply thinking about the day that we might be in that bed. Not a single one of us walked out of that room without deeply thinking about where were we headed? Who do we want to become? Who do we want to be surrounded by on Christmas Eve? And how are we going to get there before we ran out of time? See, you've got to understand that you don't have all the time in the world. And so on this life, you've got to see who do you want to become? How do you want to be remembered? How do you want people to talk about you when you're gone? And then you've got to step back into today, and you've got to create the urgency to become that kind of person before you run out of time. This is a powerful principle to incorporate into your personal life, but also into the way that you lead your teams. A couple ways that we can understand this principle. I got 2 words if you want to take notes. If you're taking notes, 2 words that'll help you understand this principle a little bit better. Attention and urgency. First word is attention. So much of our life is spent on autopilot. See, we can go weeks, months, sometimes even years without ever stepping back in our life, stepping back and looking back on our life and remembering why we started on something in the first place. We get busy with the busy things, and we stay busy. And a lot of times, being busy feels like you're moving forward, right? We get busy with the busy things, but we get caught up in it, and we don't even remember why we started on something, what our mission was, what our vision was in the first place. And so whether you've got big dreams you want to accomplish, or you're a leader who wants to see some better results, you've got to make sure that you take control of where your attention goes. Daily, refocus, recalibrate, step back, and be observant of what you do on a daily basis. If your current tasks aren't lined up with where you're going in the end, with where you want to be in the end, that's a pretty good indicator that you're going to be in for a rude awakening sometime in the near future. Got to take control of where our attention goes. Every morning when I step out of bed, I still got this old raggedy whiteboard. My wife does not like it up there. It makes the whole room look bad. But I got this old whiteboard, and it's got scratches on it and different colors that don't wash out anymore with the markers. But up on top of that whiteboard, I still have written out the kind of person that I want to become in the end, how I want to be remembered, what kind of things I accomplish. And below that, I have a list of things I need to do in the next couple of years that are going to help me get closer to becoming that kind of person. Below that, a list of things I need to do this year, this month, this week, and to today. And see, I don't wake up, there's not a single day that I wake up out of my bed and I forget where I'm headed in life, because every morning it's smack dab right in my face and I see it up there. Second word, urgency. On top of that whiteboard, I don't just have dates written out of when I want to accomplish certain things by, but I have dates of when I started. And this gives me urgency. See, when I see those dates up there, I understand that I can't just watch. I can't just assume that I'm moving forward just because I'm trying things every single day. If I see a date up there and I'm not moving, I spend 24 hours in my day and I haven't done anything to move forward towards that, then I haven't progressed at all. I'm not a big believer in that we stay stagnant. I think in life you're either moving forward or you're falling behind, because every single day that you haven't done something to move you forward, you've actually lost time. We can't gamble with time. Time is deceptive. We gamble with it, we lose every single time. From our biggest dreams to our smallest tasks in our daily schedules, we've got to take control of our attention, and we've got to live with urgency. Nothing drives me more today than the thought of ever looking back on my life and spotting a time where I took my foot off the pedal, where I slowed down a little bit, where I avoided some sort of fear, some sort of discomfort at the price of one of my greatest dreams. It was pretty scary to walk out here in front of you guys today, but I got to lean into it. I got to step into it every single time. And I've already seen in my life what happens to me when I take my foot off the pedal, when I get a little bit complacent. I love beer. I still love my beer, but it took me down somewhere where I didn't want to go for a long time. Got to take control of our attention, our urgency. Lead with the end in mind. Your life will never be the same again. Your organization will never be the same again. I learned that extraordinary leaders, extraordinary people understand that in this life, in all things, you've got to be filled with gratitude. Gratitude is an attitude that you can put on. It's not a feeling that you get. Just like we chose which pair of shoes to put on when we came in here today, you can choose to put on this attitude. See, gratitude is like an old train, where if it's standing still, in order to get this train moving down the track, there's a lot of energy has to be put in, right? A lot of effort. That's a lot of weight. There's a lot of friction, a lot of resistance to get this train moving down the tracks. It's hard to find things to be grateful for right when we're in the middle of some crap in our life. It is hard. But you've got to start small. Maybe every day while you're brushing your teeth, start compiling a list of people in your life that you're grateful for, experiences that you had throughout the day. Maybe before you crawl into bed tonight, write down a list of experiences and people and interactions that you had. And just like that train, once it gains momentum, then there's no stopping it. See, gratitude is a phenomenon that it shifts your focus from everything that's going wrong in your life to what's already been right the entire time. It's a phenomenon that removes stomach ulcers and stress hormones out of people's bodies. Science and doctors have already shown us that to people who practice gratitude and have a gratitude journal. If you're really struggling to find things to be grateful for, my dad one time told us about his first Christmas in the United States. I was only about 3 or 4 years old, so I don't remember that, but in the Soviet Union, there's no such thing as religious freedom. And so when my dad and his older brothers and my grandfather would get together for church services in the community with other people in the community, the KGB would often find out where that was. They'd kick the door in, come in and arrest people. A couple of my uncles got their teeth knocked out, spent 2 to 3 years at a time in prison, constant persecution. And so my dad walks into a grocery store in the United States. His first Christmas here, he hears faith-based Christmas music playing on the radio. He said he couldn't believe it, broke down and cried right there, right in the store. If you don't have something to be grateful for, remember the country that you live in, the freedom that we have here to do whatever we want to do, to become whoever we want to become, to create the kind of changes that you want to create in your city, in your organizations, without anyone ever coming and stopping and getting in your way. Powerful principle to incorporate into your teams. A couple ways. I got 3 words for this principle as well that you can take down for your notes. Perspective, reflection, and appreciation. Let's start with perspective. Gratitude is a matter of perspective. See, it's not about being thankful only when things are going good in your life, because a lot of times you'll find that things aren't going so well. And so if your attitude for life is dependent on how things are going here, you're just setting yourself for a lot of failure, because eventually things aren't going so well, and eventually those things can crumble. And so, see, I can be thankful for the work that I have, the career that I have, the things that I do, for my beautiful wife. I can be thankful for a lot of things in my life. But there's something called the law of familiarity, which says that no matter how amazing someone is, no matter how great things are in your life, eventually they start to become the new norm because you see them so often. And you start to take things for granted. And little by little, you start to, and then one small problem, one small obstacle, one small thing happens to your life, and you feel like your entire life is falling apart, right? Because this one thing. But with the right perspective, no matter how big of a problem you're facing, no matter how big of an obstacle you have, nothing is ever going to take away the rest of the blessings that you already have in your life on a daily basis. Leading 10, 100, 1,000 people can be a massive challenge. That can bring a lot of difficulty with that. But if you're looking at it as not as leading 1,000 people with 1,000 different problems, but leading 1,000 different people and with the opportunity to inspire, to encourage, to influence 1,000 different lives, suddenly that changes your mindset. Suddenly that shifts your entire way of thinking. It shifts your perspective. We can bring so much more purpose back into what we do if we approach it with the right perspective. Second word for this principle is reflection. One of the most powerful things that you can do for yourself as an individual is to reflect on your progress and remember how far you've come already. Anytime I find myself whining a little bit, getting a little bit impatient with the process, getting a little bit frustrated, I have to stop myself, look back on how far I've come. And looking back and seeing some of those times where I was really struggling, some of those times of a lot of confusion, always snaps me out of any tantrum that I may be throwing myself at that moment. And so as a leader, never hesitate to share your journey, never hesitate to share your story with your teams. When they see where you've come from, when they see why you do what you do, when they see what inspires you, what drives you to show up and give your best, don't demand it from them. Show them why you get inspired, why you show up every single day. They'll respect your journey and your story so much more than they'll ever respect that title that's on your badge or maybe on your office door. I promise you that. Sit down, share some stories with them. Share why you do what you do. It's a powerful thing. Reflecting on how far you've come will always keep your attitude in gratitude. Third word to remember is appreciation. If you can make someone feel good about themselves, raise their self-esteem, people are going to love you for it. People are going to become loyal to you for it. It's sad to see how many people go throughout their careers, go throughout their days without ever being acknowledged for the work that they do, without being acknowledged for the impact that they have in your organizations or maybe even in the family. It's unfortunate. And so if you can purposely seek out ways to encourage people, purposely find ways, things in them that you like, things in them that you think are powerful, things in them that are helping your organization, make sure you call it out. Make sure you let them know. It'll change your life. It'll change your organization's life. One thing you got to remember, though, appreciation is not flattery. Flattery is defined as excessive and insincere praise. See, if we're taking shortcuts, if we're using the simple route, we're using simple flattery on our spouse, on our friends, on our teams, on the people that we lead, people start to sense that. It's pretty easy to sense a fake compliment. But real leaders, see, they spend time, they put energy and time into purposely going out of their way and finding ways that they can encourage people and finding those amazing things that these people do. Be genuine in your praise of people. Be genuine in your appreciation. Be genuine in your compliments. You will experience real gratitude. So with perspective, we're looking back on the same things in our lives, just through a different lens. With reflection, we're looking back on how far we've come. And with appreciation, we're intentionally finding ways to encourage people, going out of our way, spending the time to encourage people. Combine these three, your life will be filled with gratitude. Your organization will experience gratitude. Your life will never be the same again. Hey, smack your neighbor in the ribs and tell him, hey, I appreciate you. Let's not get too violent here, just a little tap, little smack. Extraordinary leaders, extraordinary people understand that each day you've got to give of yourself more than you ever have before. This is about doing today what others only talk about doing so that tomorrow you can have what everyone else is dreaming about. This is about letting the fear of sucking at something and failing at something push you so hard that you produce something amazing. I am going to warn you, though, people are going to start to treat you one of two ways when they see you start to live this way. First kind of people are going to see you raise your expectations, see you raise your standards. You're going to get pushback from them. They won't like that. Because you're going to be shining a spotlight at their own lack of ambitions. They'll say things like, who does she think she is? What does he think he's going to accomplish doing that? But you've got to ignore these kind of people, because there's a second kind of people who are going to see you start to live this way, and they're going to start to raise their standards and their expectations based on how they see you live. People like to follow people who actually know where they're going. They know that it gives them an opportunity to become who they want to become as well. Want to be a good leader? Give of yourself to whatever it is that you do. People will follow you. A couple years ago, I was at a bar. Actually, let me give you the 3 words real quick before I tell you that story. The 3 words for this principle: character, mastery, and passion, if you want to write those down. We'll start with character. Any great leader is a character, meaning they're so into what they do, they are so into their craft to the point where they might even start looking a little bit weird. They kind of start nerding out a little bit. I was at a bar a while back, this bar that was playing live music. We were celebrating something, and this band that was there that particular night, they were a band that was playing 50s cover music. So it was all 50s music, amazing music. They had the whole place rocking. We were having a good time. But there was one guy in particular, that one of the band members, that showed up. I mean, this dude was going extra. This guy he showed up in full costume. He was the only guy out of the band that showed up in full costume. He had his hair slicked back. He had the shirt sleeves rolled up, the baggy jeans and the shoes, everything. This guy was going for it. He's performing. This dude is running up and down the stage. He's the only one in the band that's sweating. Every time when he's playing the guitar, he looks like he's about to bite his tongue off because he's playing it hard. And when he's singing, his eyebrows look like they're about to float to the top of his head. I mean, this guy was going for it. And I remember I'm watching him, and I look around, and every eye in the bar is on this guy the entire night, and this guy's not even the lead singer of the band. And I caught myself thinking, what am I doing so well that people can't take their eyes off of me? And where can I pour that much of myself into it? What are you doing so well that people can't take their eyes off of you? What are you willing to be so great at to the point where you might even start looking like a little bit of a weirdo because you nerd out so much? Powerful principle. Second word for this is mastery. A lot of us can do 1,000 things well, but most of us will probably never be the best at one thing. Mastery is about being the best at least one thing. I know we got a lot going on. We got a lot of things to juggle. We got a lot of different hats that we have to wear. But are you willing to put at least most of your time into some of those things that you want to be great at? See, because with mastery comes pride in your work. With mastery comes dedication. With mastery comes risk and ridicule for people to make fun of you, because in order to truly master something, you've got to fail over and over again. And sometimes you gotta try over and over again, and sometimes you're going to look stupid along the way as you're failing along the way. Whatever it is that you do it with all your heart. Give all of yourself to it, and I promise you your world will change, your organization will change. Third word to implement for this principle, passion. Here's a word that might be a little bit overused, might be a little bit misused. Everyone talks about find your passion, be passionate, passion, passion, passion. What I notice is a lot of times when it comes to things that people don't have control over, like maybe the economy, maybe some sort of politics, maybe religion, people are ready to rip your face off if you disagree with them. Am I right? Suddenly you see the passion and the fire in their eyes. People are ready to fight you right then and there. But then when it comes to things that they do have control over, like their own finances, their own dreams, their own personal goals, with the things that they're in control over, all of a sudden that passion fades away. All of a sudden they can't be bothered. I think we like to fight for the things that we can't control because there's no skin in the game. If that thing doesn't turn out the way we wanted it to, well, we're not the ones looking stupid. We're not the ones who failed. But then when it comes to failing in the things that we do, suddenly there's a lot more skin in the game. Suddenly there's a lot more embarrassment that comes with it, a lot more hurt that comes with that. Let's put a little bit more skin into the game, a little bit more skin into these things that we're trying to accomplish, these things that we want to do, these changes that we want to see. Be willing to look a little bit weird, become a character. Choose mastery over mediocrity. And know that you have passion, just be a little bit more intentional about what you spend it on. Lead this way, your life will never be the same again. Elbow your neighbor in the ribs and tell him, hey, you're quite the character. Nobody's elbowing, just make sure they're not drinking a glass of water. I learned that extraordinary leaders understand that you can't blame anyone but yourself. The most precious thing that a failure has is his or her blame list. Watch people in our society who have this list. They have all the reasons why they're not successful. All the people that have wronged them. All these excuses that they have, and they hold on to this excuse, and you can't take this away from them if you use a crowbar. You take that away, they got nothing else to blame but themselves. People don't like that. What are those animals that crawl really, really slowly through the trees with a long... Sloths, yes. I was reading random facts about sloths, because apparently that's what I do with my free time. Sloths are known to sometimes, as they're crawling through the branches in the trees, they're sometimes known to mistake their own hands for branches, and they grab onto their hand and they fall out of the trees to their death. First time I read that, I laughed so hard I had to go back and read it again. I do feel guilty for laughing, and not even quite sure that that's a real fact, but what a perfect picture it is of people in our life who hold on to these excuses, and the only way to help themselves, the only way to save themselves is to let go, be vulnerable, reach out, grab something else to hold on to, and they can't. And I'm sure the faster those sloths are falling, the harder they're squeezing onto their own hand. What a shame it is to be holding on to the very thing that's taking you down. Sure, life has problems. We all have problems. Matter of fact, there's not a single person in this room who hasn't dealt with an incredible amount of problems in their life, who isn't dealing with problems right now, who's probably not going to be dealing with problems in the future. So our attitude for life has to become not, here's what happened to me, here's why I am the way that I am because of it, but our attitude should be, here's what happened to me, here's what I'm willing to do about it, even though I wasn't responsible. Powerful principle to incorporate, especially into our teams if you're a leader. A couple words, a couple ways that we can understand this principle. Raise your hand if you met a person that within the first 5 minutes of meeting them has already dumped every problem, everything that's going on in their lives, everything that's been going bad, yeah? And if that's you, keep your hand down. See, what I think when we're doing this is that we're looking for a permission slip. We want people to nod their heads. We want people to agree with us. We want people to say, yeah, your life is harder. Yeah, that is tough. We want people to agree with us. Now we have a permission slip not to put in the kind of effort that we need to put in to see the kind of changes that we want to see. But people's lives are usually a tale of one of two stories. The story they tell themselves and everybody, and the story told by their actions. Some of us sometimes may need to put some blinders on. See, the journey is difficult for some, and it might take a long time. It may be quick for others, and it might go a little bit faster. But the point is, we've got to run our own race. Racehorses, sometimes the ones that are really jumpy, the ones that get really scared very easily, they'll put these blinders on them. And that's how this horse can pay attention to only what's going on in front of it and not be distracted by anything else going on around it. Some of us are like this horse, where we get so distracted by what's going on around us, everything that's going on, every little thing throws us off, and we never quite pay attention to where we need to head. But maybe we need to put some blinders on. Spend a little bit less time with the negative news. Spend a little bit less time with negative people, with people that make you feel like you're constantly behind. And take control of exactly where we're going. My aunt married a German man. I love my uncle. He's one of the coolest guys, one of my favorite uncles. But when they got married, a bunch of my grandfather's friends, they came to him and they said, how can you let that happen? How can you let your daughter marry a German man after all the things they did to you in the war, in the concentration camps? How can you let that happen? My grandfather's response always was, it wasn't the German people that did this to me, it was the Nazis. So he had every reason, every excuse, every reason to hate a certain kind of people, every reason to hold that inside of him and let the things that happened to him in the past, let it completely shape the path that his life took going in the future. But he never let one thing that happened to him let it affect how he looked at a certain kind of people. He never let it affect the rest of his life. My dad said he never once in his life ever heard him badmouth German people, ever. My friends, the quicker we take the responsibility of every single aspect of our life, the quicker we can move forward on our dreams. Give up your blame list, exchange it for a gratitude list. Your life will never be the same again. I learned that extraordinary leaders, extraordinary people understand that you've got to develop a burning desire. This is about finding that one thing and going after it with everything that you have. This is if you ever heard Simon Sinek talk about why. This is your why. This is the fuel that pushes everything that you do. Raise your hand if you love your alarm clock. You love a nice, good, loud, screaming alarm clock in the morning. Nobody? I don't either, but one thing I can tell you, that on the day that I found something new to fight for, on the day that I found my why, suddenly waking up at 4:30, 5:30 in the morning to work on my side business before I headed into that office became a lot easier for me. I had something bigger to fight for. I had something else that was throwing me out of bed, something else that was a little bit more important to me than staying in the coziness of my bed. I know it's a heck of an analogy, but picture a hot piece of coal going into your mouth and dropping into your throat and then finally dropping into your stomach. Where it's burning everything in your mouth, into your throat, and then finally drops into your stomach, burning everything in your stomach. Where everything that you're hungry for becomes about this thing that you want to accomplish. Everything that you live and breathe is about this vision that you've created for yourself, this change that you want to see in your community. Everything that you talk about is these ideas and these things that you want to do. Keep feeding that vision until it becomes an obsession. Being obsessed is another one of those words that has a negative connotation, right? People have to tell you, stop being so obsessed. My opinion, if we had a little bit more people obsessed over who they wanted to become, maybe we'd be living in a better world. If we had a little bit more people obsessed over the changes that they wanted to see, over the things that they wanted to create, we'd have a lot less people standing back on the sidelines and watching everyone else go by doing amazing things with their lives. A couple ways that we'll know we're on the right track with becoming obsessed. Something that goes from a wish list to something that we start obsessing about. A couple ways we know that we're starting to develop a burning desire. Here's why you need to become obsessed. Your brain actually does not know the difference between something that you want and something that you casually think about. And it's because there's no emotion behind it. Neuroscience tells us that the minute you create a clear goal in your mind, a clear intention of what you want, your brain knows exactly what to do with it and immediately starts to go to work and starts to spot opportunities, starts to spot things in your life that strengthen that intention, that strengthen that image in your mind. We have to start being a little bit more intentional and start creating clear, defined goals on what it is that we're trying to accomplish, what it is that we're trying to do. Second way we know we're on the right track, we know we're developing a burning desire. It's not something that's just going to be on our wish list, is if we're scared. Because if you're scared, you know you're on the right track. If you're not scared, your dreams, your goals, your environment might not be big enough, might not be pushing you hard enough. Sprinters sometimes are known to, not known to, but sprinters sometimes in training, what they'll do is they put a bungee cord around their hip and they start backing up. And they're stretching this bungee cord and they're stretching it to the point where they can't stretch it anymore, and then they launch themselves forward. And what they're doing is they're forcing their body to move faster than their legs can keep up with them. Yeah, and what they're doing is they're forcing their legs to keep up with the speed of their body, and they're forcing them to learn how to be faster than they currently are. So what's your bungee cord? What are some environments that you're putting yourself into that force you to run a little bit faster than you can run? What are some environments that you can put yourself into that force you to adapt a little bit quicker than you would if you were going at your own pace? There was a woman one time who was trying to quit smoking, and she tried everything. This woman tried everything. She tried the nicotine patch. She tried therapy groups. She tried support groups. Nothing worked. One day, the doctor told her 3 words that got her to quit smoking. What do you think those 3 words are? What was that? That's a good one, but that still didn't stop her. I'm sorry? Good guess. You are pregnant. The minute she found out that she had a baby inside of her, everything else fell off. She was able to quit when nothing else was working. Even when they told her she was going to die, she couldn't quit. This is the kind of mindset that we have to have, this kind of approach that we have to have to what it is that we're trying to do. It has to mean so much more to us. It has to be so much bigger to us than anything else that we're holding on to. Any other comfortability, any other comfort zones that we find ourselves in. What are you fighting for today, if I may ask that? Don't wish and hope for things to happen to you. Develop a burning desire. Let it hurt you a little bit. Let it push you. Let it be something that you're a little bit more invested into, and things will start changing for you, I promise you. Other than that, extraordinary leaders, extraordinary people understand that you must take action. Now, here's a principle. How many times have you heard this principle in your life? Thousands of times, right? It's one of the most basic principles if you want to achieve people. Just take action, go do something about it. But I think a lot of times with this principle, a lot of times people don't take action because people treat action like it's a feeling instead of it being like a muscle. Action should be more like a muscle. It's something that you train your body to make. As soon as you're inspired by something, you hear something, you have an idea, take one small step towards that thing. More of a muscle. People treat it like a feeling, but if you're waiting to feel excited, feel motivated, feel enthusiastic, you're going to be feeling like crap for a very long time. Most of our environments, they're not set up in a way that is conducive to taking action. Some big fear, some distraction, something's always going to come and steer us away from our vision. Something's always going to distract us. Some of us, we think that if something big and drastic enough is going to happen, then that'll change things for us. Maybe we hit rock bottom in our finances, rock bottom in our health, rock bottom in our relationship. Finally, we'll change. Finally, we'll say, okay, I give up, I'll do something about it. My experience, that's still not going to be enough. When I was about 17 years old, my brothers and I, we were driving to a wedding, and we got into a little bit of a road rage with this lady. We were going 80 miles an hour down the freeway. This maniac lady swerved her car full speed into my brother's SUV, clipped the back of my brother's SUV. SUV spun around, still going 80 miles an hour. The back left tire snapped off, and the entire SUV started rolling down the freeway, bouncing around. I was in the back seat, unbuckled the entire time. I'm bouncing on the car. I'm finding things to grab onto. I grab onto the back of the passenger seat. As soon as the car lands on its roof, it skids for about another 100 yards before it finally comes to a stop. All 3 of us crawl out without a single scratch on us. Just glass in our hair, glass in our eyes, but no scratches, nothing else. Ambulance lady pulls up. She takes one look at the car, takes one look at how mangled the car was. She called us golden boys. She said, nobody should have came out of that car alive. She didn't even know I was unbuckled the whole time, too. I didn't want to tell her. But you can bet that was a little moment of inspiration for me. You can bet that got me thinking about my life a little bit differently, the way that I was treating people, what I was doing, where I was headed in my life. But that lasted for about a week. And about a week later, I already forgot because I never did a thing about it. I never planted, I never drew a line in the sand. I didn't take one small step to making any changes that I was inspired to make at that moment. waiting for something big to happen to us, it's probably still not going to be enough. More of a muscle built up over a long period of time. Taking action is going to do one of two things for you if you're taking notes. It's going to create momentum, and then it's going to create opportunities for you once you start gaining a little bit of momentum. Let's start with momentum. A train going full speed has a ton of momentum. You ever sit next to a track with a train rolling by? I mean, that's a ton of momentum. The ground's shaking, there's wind. That train's got a lot of momentum. You put a car in front of that train, you put a bus in front of that train, you put a brick wall, it plows right through that wall. It doesn't even slow it down. It doesn't even affect it. Now you take a brick and you put it under the drive wheel of a train that's standing still, that train's not even going to be able to start moving down the track. That's the power of momentum. See, without momentum, we can get something called paralysis by analysis, where we start to overthink every little thing, every little obstacle, every little thing that comes up, and we got this big idea, we got this big project, and every little small thing comes and stops us in the way and it knocks us off track before we even ever get started. With momentum, no matter how big an obstacle is, no matter how big of a problem is, once you've already gained a little bit of momentum, you've already been taking action, you've already done things to move you forward, nothing's going to ever be able to be enough to throw you completely off track. Some people think that they'll take action once opportunity comes. But I can tell you guys right now that most real opportunity doesn't even come until some small action has already been taken. Some small action has already been taken in the background where it's unnoticeable. And now, once you started taking action, opportunities start to come up. Eventually, you're also going to have to make a big leap. Eventually, those small little steps, those small little things that you've been doing are not going to be enough. Eventually, there's going to be a big leap that required because you're going to get to a point where now you have to make a big decision, a big choice. For me, leaving my office job to step into this new reality of who I wanted to become, I wanted to become an author and a speaker, but I had no idea how that was going to happen. Nobody knew my name. Nobody knew anything about me. But it came to a point, but I just started learning. I started taking action. I started learning, started writing notes, started writing speeches, started practicing to my wall, any little thing that I could do. Then it came to a point where I had to make the transition. I could no longer keep that job and step into my new reality. But if I hadn't been taking those small steps, that step would have never been taken. I would never be able to leave the comfort and the safety of a consistent paycheck if I hadn't already been building up that action muscle over a long period of time. Smack your neighbor in the ribs and tell him it's time to jump. Extraordinary leaders understand that you must always persist. This is another principle that is not the funnest to talk about because this one's also not very sexy. This one's about the nitty-gritty. This is about continuing long after all that excitement and enthusiasm has already faded away. Long after everyone else has already given up and thrown in the towel and gone home. There's a difference between NFL players, Hall of Fame NFL players, and just the NFL players that call themselves stars or the R-stars. And the difference is that the Hall of Fame players, they love the Monday through the Friday practice just as much as they love playing the game on Sunday because they know it's the nitty-gritty. They're doing the same stupid, little, tiny, boring things over and over and over again to the point where you can't even get around anymore. That's what allows them to be great on Sunday. The lesser players, the all-stars, they love the fame, they love the glory, they love playing the game on Sunday. They don't like to show up to practice on the Monday through Friday. That's the kind of approach that we have to what it is that we're doing. As hard as it sounds, we have to fall in love with the process of doing those little boring, tiny little things, those unnoticeable, tiny little things where you're sitting in your underwear on your laptop in your kitchen over, till 2 or 3 o'clock at night doing the small little things. And then they start appearing when the time comes, when the lights start to get a little bit brighter. Whatever dreams, goals that you have for your organizations, we have to take this kind of approach to life. Knock on one more door, introduce yourself to one more person. Stay for one more hour, practice for one more hour, try one more time. Your life will never be the same again. 10 people can hear a message. 9 of them will be inspired. 8 of them will be inspired an hour later. 7 of them will write it down. 6 of them will talk about it. 5 of them will take some action on it. 4 of them will hope that it's possible for them. 3 of them will really wish that it's possible for them. 2 of them will start taking action on it and fight past the fears and frustrations. And 1 of them will persist long enough to actually see this thing through. That's the unfortunate thing. Be the one that sees things through. Be the one that follows through all the boring and all the when things are suddenly not so inspiring or so motivational anymore. Persistence is also about recalibrating. See, a lot of us, if we had the luxury of knowing when success was coming for us, nobody would ever quit, right? If I knew that in 30 days we were going to hit this target, in 30 days we were going to be successful, I would never quit because I know that I just need to hold on for 30 more days, no matter how hard they are, and then I'm good. Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of knowing when success is coming. So a lot of times we get caught in between, well, should I just be a little bit more patient, or do I need to change something? And that's where persistence comes in, because persistence is actually more about recalibrating. It's about, if something's not working out, make a change. If something else is not working out, make another change. It's not about blindly ramming your head into a brick wall, hoping that you're going to break through. That's not going to work out too well for you. They say an airplane actually has an airplane that's taken off from one airport, going to another airport. They put this airplane into autopilot. This airplane is actually off course about 90% of the time. So the airplane's flying, there's turbulence, there's wind, there's constantly things throwing this plane around through the skies. But the autopilot is constantly resetting this plane, constantly putting it back on track until they get close to the airport, pilot takes over, and they land the plane. That's what persistence is. It's not about removing obstacles. You're never going to remove obstacles. Matter of fact, the bigger your dream, the bigger the target, the bigger the goal that you have for your personal life, for your organization, the bigger the obstacles are going to be. You're not going to remove those. But it's about continuing to get back on track, continuing to try one more thing, taking a different approach, sneaking in through the back door, whatever you got to do to make sure that you never get knocked off as many, or to get back on track as many times as you get knocked off. Now, friends, recalibrate, adjust, trust the process. Your life, your organization will never be the same again. I learned that extraordinary people understand that you're a creature of habit. You can't break in a day what you've built over 10 years. See, in your mind, in your brain, you got something called neurons and neural pathways, where every time you repeat a thought, every time you repeat an action, these neurons start to fire off. And the more you repeat this thought, the more you repeat this action, these neurons fire off, and they start to form these branch-like looking pathways in your brain. And that's how your brain creates habits. It's taking your most repeated thoughts and actions, and it puts them into your subconscious mind. That way, it can save your energy for whatever else that you need to put energy and focus on throughout the day. Good thing is, this is phenomenal. This is great design for when we need to tie our shoes the same way every day, when we need to drive our car. Sometimes we're not even paying attention when we need to put our pants on the same way every single day. The bad news is that we've started developing habits, and we've created things in our life that are completely pulling us in a different direction than where we want to go. They're making our goals, our dreams, so much harder to achieve, because even though we want something, mentally we want something, but our entire environment, everything in our house, our friends, the circle of people that are around us, everything is completely pointing us into a different direction. If your dream and your goal is big enough, some of these things have to start falling off. And it starts with small, tiny choices over a long period of time. About 10 years ago, I used to play this semi-pro minor league football team, so it wasn't the legit thing, but we were playing football. We were in a game, and I was running with the ball. I got an interception, so I'm running with the ball, and there's a guy running to tackle me, and I see him coming, and I pretend I don't see him, but I'm running as fast as I can, and my plan was to last minute was to stop and then let him fly by, and then I could keep going. The problem was that when I planted my foot on the ground, I turned my body, my cleat got stuck in the ground, and my leg didn't turn with my cleat, and I heard the loudest pop that I've ever heard come from my body, and it's not a sound that you want to hear coming from your body, I promise you that. I was falling to the ground, I grabbed onto my knee, and I was feeling, even before I hit the ground, all the guys around me heard the pop. I was expecting a bone to be sticking out of my leg. Luckily, I didn't break anything, but I tore every ligament in my knee, and I had to get reconstructive knee surgery. So I have a screw coming up into this bone, another big screw coming down into this bone. I was out for about 2 to 3 weeks. But it wasn't until I was out, it wasn't until I was sitting on the couch and it was taking me 20 minutes and a whole lot of sweat to go use the bathroom that I realized how much of my life was on complete autopilot. How many small little things I was doing that I wasn't even thinking about. And that's fine, like I said, I don't need to put too much energy into using the bathroom. But our environments are set up. We've set up really bad environments. We've set up bad habits. We've set up things. We've built this entire thing around us that is completely pulling us off track. Everything that, whether it's from people that we surround ourselves with, from the things that we eat, the media that we consume, everything is set up and it's fighting against us. And then when we have something bigger where we need all of ourselves to it, we can't even give ourselves all of ourselves to it. Here's one good habit that I can suggest to you guys that'll change your life, I promise you. Reading 20 minutes a day, just 20 minutes. Reading 20 minutes, I'm sure you spend more time on social media and reading negative news than that by a long shot. 20 minutes a day gives you 121 hours per year of reading time. Divide that, say an average book is 6 hours, some are more, some are way less, but 6 hours, 121 hours a year. That's 20 books a year that you can read by the end of the year. Do you think that 20 books can change your life? You read 20 books in 1 year. Do you think that could change your life? That'll reshape your entire, hell yes, that will. That'll reshape your entire mindset. I've had single books that have changed my entire way of thinking, have changed my life. I've read the crappy ones too, but it can change your entire life. It starts a whole new flow into your mind, a whole new idea, and a whole new mindset. Take new action, think new thoughts, make better choices, and repeat, and your life will never be the same again. I learned that extraordinary leaders understand that love will set you free. Here's a principle that, I know you're probably looking at it like this, what does love have anything to do with achieving what I want to achieve? But here's a principle that if we don't understand this principle, if we don't incorporate this principle into the way that we behave as leaders and the way that we behave in our family, then no amount of success, nothing's ever going to make us happy. Nothing's ever going to bring us the joy that we're looking for in life. No amount of achievement. We're creatures, whether you believe that we were created or you believe that we evolved, we all know that we're creatures, we're like pack animals. In relationships with human connection, we thrive, we're the best in connection. Problems start arising when people start to separate themselves, when they separate from packs and their family and their friends. You guys remember the Las Vegas shooting that happened a couple years ago? 58 people that got killed at the country concert. The shootings happen way too often nowadays, but if you guys remember that one, I got an opportunity to send some books to some of the victims of the families, and I got a letter back from a mother who lost her only son in that shooting. I want to read you guys this letter, if that's okay. She said, Michael, when we heard the news that we had lost Jordan, we were completely and utterly broken. What followed next was an outpouring of love and support from complete strangers from around the world. The kindness did not end a week or two after Jordan's death. It kept coming and coming. And even now, when we fully expected everyone else to move on with their lives, that kindness and love is still going strong. When you reached out, I was thrilled. Once again, we saw such love and caring from people that we didn't know, and this helped us so much. We were, and in some ways still are, in shock, but we were being propped up by the kindness and support, yes, of family and friends, but incredibly from strangers, and this I find astounding. When your book came, we smiled at the name of the content. It came to us at a time in our lives when we were close to giving up. The fact that you went through the effort of sharing your book with us amazed us. We can never repay you for your kindness and support during the most unthinkable of times. Your gesture helps to fill the cracks in our broken hearts. Thank you is not enough, but it's all we have to give. Alan and Angela and wee Mammy Ann, Jordan's Nana. If we don't understand that we're creatures, we're like pack animals. If we, on our way to our dream, on our journey, if we don't find a way to stop and help other people along the way, bring people along our journey, no amount of success, no amount of achievement is ever going to make you happy. It's never going to bring you purpose or meaning to what you do. Deep down, we know that purpose and meaning comes when we're serving other people more than we're even getting ourselves. That's where the real joy comes from. We always enjoy giving something than receiving a gift. I got 5 ways. 5 ways that you can lead with love and become influential, even starting here at the conference. 5 simple ways. Simple ways that can allow you to be more influential, more loving, better leader. Be generous in your compliments and stingy with your criticism. Be quick to admire, slow to gossip. Always stick up for the lone gazelle. Never find yourself among the pack of hyenas. Celebrate people's wins, forget all about their losses. Ask about their dreams often. Speak about yours rarely or until they ask. Use these 5 simple things. You can be influential in so many more people's lives. Your connection is going to change with people in simple conversations. They say loneliness is a problem now in our society. A YouGov poll says 30% of people aged 23 to 39 are lonely. 30% of millennials say they don't have a best friend. 23 or 27% of them say they don't even have a close friend. Maybe media is to blame. Maybe our culture is to blame. Maybe technology is to blame. Maybe it's that we've created a culture where if you disagree with somebody, you can simply cut them out of your life because you still have 1,000 other friends on Facebook that are just going to agree with you and clap for you. Maybe it's that we've forgotten that one of our most basic human needs is to have connection and relationships with people, to be acknowledged, to be accepted into other groups and groups of friends and teams. And yet we've developed a culture that absolutely does not know how to deal with conflict. And we start creating this attitude, well, if I can't find a group or a team that works, that believes in that has the same views and beliefs as I do, I'm just going to simply cut everyone else and I'm going to stay in my own bubble. And instead of learning how to find common ground with people, with this kind of attitude, we simply break off connections with people that are directly in our circle of influence. Groups, teams, support systems, they're the very things that allow us to make meaningful connections, meaningful relationships. And yet we're neglecting one of the most important things, one of the most basic human needs, because we'd rather be right and alone than have to find a way to mold with someone that we completely disagree with. When I was about 12 years old, my dad, all of my brothers and I, we're going 7 brothers, we're all still very close. Lucky to have all of them, all my sisters, of course, as well. But my dad saw all of us boys growing up, and the older boys were starting to chase girls now, and they had a little bit different interest than some of us younger guys, and he wanted us to stay close together as a family always. And he always told us that if friends are going to come and go, but your brothers are always going to be there for you. And he had this example for us. One time he called us down into the kitchen early Saturday morning, and we're still sleepy, hair all messed up, and he has this old broom. I don't know where he got it, but it's this old straw broom. And he's holding his broom, and he pulls a piece of straw out of that broom, and he hands it to my older brother, and he says, break that piece of straw. And my older brother breaks a piece of straw, pops out 2 pieces of straw from that broom. He hands it to my older brother. He says, break the piece of straw, or the straws. And my older brother snaps the straws. Then he hands him the broom. He says, go ahead, break the broom. My older brother's trying to show off, trying to be funny. He starts slamming this thing against his knee. He's hitting it against the wall. He can't break it. He hands it back to my dad. My dad says, like those pieces of straw, you guys are weak on your own. The world can separate you, and the world will break you. Together in the pack, no matter how weak you are, you guys stay in a pack, nobody's ever going to be able to separate you. The world will never be able to break you. This is the kind of mindset, this is the kind of approach that we have to have when we go back on Monday to our organizations, to our teams. Connection is everything. You are so much stronger in your groups. You're so much stronger as a family. You're so much stronger in your marriage when you have this mindset, when you're tight, when you know you're weak on your own, but together, nobody's ever going to break you. Brian and Johan would still be here, I think, if they had one person in life, one leader, one friend close enough to them that was there for them when they needed them most. I truly believe that. And so as leaders, we have to show empathy. As leaders, we have to be intentional about the way that we connect with people. As leaders, we have to be like a magnet. We have to be drawing people, constantly drawing people towards ourselves, no matter what their backgrounds are, no matter what their political views are, no matter what their religious views are, whatever. That's not up to us. We're a magnet. We draw people towards ourselves, and we never let anyone get separated from the pack. When people get separated from the pack, that's when a lot of trouble starts to come. Implement these principles, those 5, especially those little tools, and I promise you your life will never be the same again. Last one, you guys good? You guys with me? Yeah. Everyone got more coffee? Almost done. I got you guys here for a couple more minutes. You must choose to believe. 1954, there was a man named Roger Bannister. First guy in the world to run a mile in under 4 minutes. That time was an actual belief that if a human being was able to run that fast, then their heart would literally explode inside their chest. Mr. Bannister really wanted to test his heart. He really wanted to break this record, but he decided he's going to do it. And so every single day in practice, he's running the track, and no matter what the clock is saying what the time is saying on the clock, he's seeing it saying 3 minutes 59 seconds. So he runs a mile, 3:59. Runs a mile, 3:59. Runs a mile, 3:59. And then in an actual race in the Olympics, he breaks the world record, 3 minutes and 59 seconds. He runs the mile. That same year, 12 other guys did it too. So what happened? Did they suddenly start to train more? Did they suddenly become faster? They saw Mr. Bannister do it, and then they believed that they could do it too. Whose name do we remember now? Roger Bannister. Nobody remembers the 12 other clowns, right? They waited for someone to show them how to do something. Then they believed that they could do it. Extraordinary leaders, extraordinary people, they don't wait for someone to show them how to do something. They create doors in their minds, and they walk through them long before it looks like an opportunity, long before it ever even looks like a possibility for them. Right, brothers? They don't take off in that plane if they waited for someone to show them how to build a plane. A plane has never been invented yet. This is the kind of approach that we have to have. I can guarantee you there's people in this room right now that have ideas, that have had ideas, that may have ideas, that are going to get ideas in the future that can actually change your community, that can change your city, that can change your state, it can change our country, it could change our world. I can tell you that right now. But so many ideas die away when people don't believe, they don't have this kind of belief. Most of us get caught in asking how, and instead we have to start seeing it as if it's already done. And then opportunities, then things start coming our way. A couple ways that we can implement this principle into our lives. 2 things. Removing perceived limitations and making a daily practice of visualization. Limitations come only when we're looking at the resources that we have directly in front of us. Now, in order to get started, that's good. You have to use, in order to get started, before you get moving, you have to use what's directly in front of you and use what's in front of you to get you to where you want to go. The problem is most people look at what they have in front of them. It's never enough to where they want to go, and so they eliminate themselves and they stop before they ever even get started. But like that guy with the one talent, like the servant with the one talent, this one opportunity, this one talent, this one resource that you had was never meant to be enough to get you to where you needed to go. It was meant to be a starting point. It was meant to be invested into, poured into, and used to get you more. That's the kind of mindset that we have to have. Psychologists say that the body actually does not know the difference between a real experience that it has and an experience that it has in the mind. And because of that, we can actually affect our neurocircuitry, we can affect our chemistry, we can affect our biology in our bodies just by visualizing, just by seeing things, just by worrying about things. I saw myself standing up here in front of you guys a whole lot of times, and I can tell you I felt the adrenaline and the nerves coming through my body when I was still hundreds of miles away from here. That's the power of visualizing something, and it starts affecting your biology. So what if we started using the same approach to seeing the kind of things that we want done, seeing the kind of things that we want to accomplish, and feeling those things, and letting our body already feel it and know exactly how it needs to feel when these things start happening for us. My friends, don't waste your time trying to calculate how you're going to achieve certain things, how you're going to reach, how you're going to accomplish those certain things that you want to do. Never calculate belief. Belief is a power that can't be calculated. Leave that up to a power much greater than yourself. Yes, be smart about your choices, your decisions, but are you willing to see something before it's yet visible? Guess what? You guys remember that dream that I had when I was 10 years old? Finally completed it. It only took me 19 years. That's it. Thank you. Working on my second book as well. We're hoping to have it out by Christmas. This one is a story. It's a story about a Roman. If you ever read any book like The Alchemist or The Greatest Salesman in the World by Ogmandino, fictional stories with principles, this is a story about a Roman orphan and his journey to self-discovery. And he meets a wealthy Arabian merchant, and he teaches him about life's golden principles. I put these principles into this book. See, I know concepts and ideas will be remembered for about a week, unless you took good notes. But we put them into a story, they'll be remembered for a lifetime. My beautiful wife is going to be back there at the back of the table. I do have books with me if you want to purchase one today as well. And if you have any events coming up that you want to bring me in, if you want to have some fun, I'll also be out there. And if you just want to come say hi, give me a hug, I'll be out there by the back of the door. Can I get you guys to do one more thing with me? Can I get everyone to stand up? Don't worry, I won't make you dance or anything. Get your hands out and stick them out like this and wiggle your fingers. Now touch yourself appropriately. Take your fingertips, put them on your ribs, and close your eyes and take a deep breath in. Breathe out. Open your eyes. Smile. You can put your hands down. Inside of you right now are 700 muscles attached to 200 bones that just allowed you to stand up. You've got 2 gallons of life-giving blood that pumps through 12,000 miles of blood vessels that run from your toes all the way to your fingertips by a heart that beats 35 million times per year. You've got 3 pounds of great brain matter in your head that produces thoughts which can be measured on an electromagnetic device. Eyes that subconsciously detect emotion on another person's face allow you to feel what they feel and cry when you see them cry. 17 muscles in your face that allow you to smile. Every time you smile, you release healing endorphins through your entire body. 10,000 taste buds in your tongue goes down into your throat, doesn't even choke you while you sleep. Lungs that expanded to 20,000 breaths per day, keeping you alive without you ever needing to remind them to. See, my friends, you already are an extraordinary being. When are you going to start to live like one? You've already got everything inside of you to be an extraordinary leader. When are you going to start to lead like one? Such an incredible organism, and it can be taken away in a fraction of a second by a speeding bullet in a muddy field. Such an incredible organism, and it can be taken away in a fraction of a second by a noose around the neck. Such an incredible organism, and it can be wasted away year after year in a sea of misery and loathing with no direction, no purpose, no vision in life. Whatever dreams you have for your organization, whatever dreams you have in your personal life, wherever it is that you're trying to head, apply these 11 principles to whatever it is that you want to do, and stop eating so much sugar so your cheeks don't stick together. And I promise you, you will stay alive all of your life. Thank you guys so much for your time.